Hey, this is Usama Young, founder of Believe in You. Thank you for joining us for another conversation amongst our young leaders, life, lessons, and leadership. This is our financial education series. If you have any questions afterward, visit believeinyou.org. That's believe in the letter u.org. Thank you again.
So with that being said, my name is Usama Young. Uh, from the DMV, living in Charlotte now. A challenge that I've overcome. I'm going to probably take some of you all, since a lot of you all play sports, but I broke my neck at one point playing football.
Wow.
And was able to come back from it. Wasn't sure if I would be able to, but came back from it, played another year. And it was a challenge. It was one that I was scared. I was scared for my life, but at the same time, I loved the game. So bounce back. I'm going to call on Tay. You got it next, bro.
What's up? My name is Tavon Sims from Largo, Maryland. Challenge I overcame is stepping up. Like, I kind of got tired of depending on my parents, so I had to figure out ways to make my own money. That was a challenge for me.
I like that. I'm gonna go with Xavier.
I'm Xavier Williams from Largo, Maryland. A challenge that I overcame was getting up on time. Like, I used to wake up like real late, but now I get up on time, go work out, handle my business, do everything I'm supposed to be doing. I'm gonna call on Coach Thomas.
Deron Thomas, head football coach, Largo High School, Largo, Maryland, currently in Upper Marlboro. I overcame not making it to the NFL. And I feel like now I'm still a very successful man and productive and giving back to my community. So I'm proud of that. So that was a big thing for me to overcome, because that hurt a lot for a while.
Good stuff. Call up Dakari.
I'm Dakari Bella. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. And one thing I had to overcome was like 2 years ago, well, 1 year ago, last summer, I broke my wrist, and like I had to get ready, prepared to play next season. So.
And we'll get one more, and we'll go with Juju.
My name is Jelani McNabb. I'm from the DMV. You can call me Juju. One thing I overcame was starting football at such a young age. So having to learn and experience the things that people around me have already done before. So I had to catch up.
Like that. You know what? Juju, call out one more person, and then we'll go to our guest.
All right. D. Jones.
What's going on, fellas? David Jones, aka D. Jones, living in Charlotte, North Carolina right now. I say one thing that I overcame was the transition from the game to the normal life. I think depending on how you look at it, it can be a difficult transition. And so I'm successful in that, and happy that I made it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And I appreciate you all sharing. I know throughout this is going to be an interactive portion. We want questions. We want comments. Just having this conversation. But the next guy, I want to call out our guest, and thank you for coming on, Bob Wynn.
Hello, everybody. Bob Wynn, and just let you know, I did do some push-ups today. It's the first time I've done push-ups maybe in 6-7 years. I did 5, and I could have done a couple more, but I didn't want to be too out of breath. So this is going to be a two-way street, and I'm going to learn and hopefully get a little bit more into the physical exercise that I need to stay healthy and try to live a few more years. I'm 66 years old and feel good, and so I feel blessed about that. I do like to hear from young people, and so I am interested. Well, first of all, I'll introduce myself a little bit, then I want one of the young people to share a little bit about what the organization's all about. Believe in You, what you've been doing so far, And then, we'll get into just a high level of financial literacy discussion today and see where it goes from here. Again, I'm Bob Wynn. I grew up in North Carolina myself, Greensboro, and ended up going to UNC Chapel Hill. And unlike a lot of folks that might be on this particular Zoom, I sort of took, everybody needs a scholarship, if you grow up in an African-American household and money is tight. And so I was fortunate, I was able to take the merit-based scholarship route and got a full scholarship to University of North Carolina, and very much enjoyed the 4 years there in Chapel Hill. And then from there went on to law school at Michigan and practiced law after graduating in 3 years in Detroit, Michigan, and then had a career in Wisconsin where I live now. I worked 25 years in state government and focused a lot on minority business development. And it was through that process where we did see that access to capital was a major challenge in getting people set up for entrepreneurship. And then in the process, began to understand that sort of like money attracts money. So when people lack funding, it makes it even more of a challenge for them to even get a loan, and begin to see a consistent pattern of people of color, especially African Americans and Latinos, just not only not having money, but not really understanding some of the basic principles and concepts relating to money and finances. So to make a long story short, I just decided to start a nonprofit organization focused specifically with a mission to provide financial education and wealth building for low and moderate income youth and families. We're now 20 years old, and the name of the organization is Asset Builders, and that's the same as the website name, assetbuilders.org. Have a number of other projects that I'm involved in, but all relate to financial education, sort of at the bottom of the pyramid, and wealth creation and community philanthropy at the top of the pyramid. So I'm very involved and passionate about financial education and economic empowerment. There's a lot more I could say on that, but I'll stop right there. And then just to get us warmed up, hear from a couple of the young people. One, on what Believe in You has done for you so far, and then why you're interested in learning about financial literacy. Any of you?
All right, I'll go. So my name's Juju. Usama's my godfather, so I've always been around the organization. So basically, what it's done for me is just give me the clear view of what it means to have something and not take it for granted. So basically, like I've always had things, but we've went through like different homes and homeless shelters and different like communities and gave back. And I've noticed at a young age that I have a lot that people don't have. So then like it wasn't a blockage anymore of like knowing that I have a lot more than what people have, and it gave me a clear understanding. And also another thing the organization has done for me is with all like little football camps and stuff like that, it's just like it helped me out at a young age. I've always been like an athlete, so starting football at a young age it's helped me out with like the organizations and with different stuff like that. So that was me personally.
Okay, really appreciate hearing from you. And one of the things that I wasn't going to really mention, keep in mind when you hear from me, there's certain terminology, because if you're talking about financial literacy, it's really like your sport. There are just certain terms like third down or free throw in basketball or what have you. Money has terms as well. And one that I'm introducing right now is human capital. And what Juju just demonstrated was his personal human capital, which is extremely important. So we're going to be talking about money and finances, but keep in mind, your own humanity is your first line of wealth opportunity. And the ability to speak and communicate is number one of value to you, and it'll allow you to go a long way in life. So I really appreciate what you said there. Now I'm going to show my ignorance because I'm supposed to know what the DMV is. Juju said he's from the DMV, and I can't pull it up in terms of what that is or where that is.
DC, Maryland, and Virginia.
Okay, that's kind of what I
Yeah.
thought, but I
It's
wanted
all
to be,
together.
yeah,
It's all
okay.
together.
Right. Okay. And that's the thing. As we're talking, we're gonna somewhat show your ignorance, but that's how you learn, is by asking questions and being clear and certain about information that's important to you. And we'll go along those lines. So one other young person, maybe just to share how you got to this point about wanting to know more about money and finances. Just what was involved in the conversation that led to this request.
Can I go?
I was about to say, I want to call out somebody, but never mind. I'll let them take it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm new to everything. Like, this is my first time on the meeting. Anthony, a coach from Largo, he put me on to you guys. So I'm thankful for that. But I would say I'm being 22. I'm going into my senior year of college. So I'm getting more into, like, having my own finances and everything. So I wanted to understand, like, the ins and outs of that, because they don't really teach you that in school. Like, that's more so something, unless you take, like, a finance or accounting class, like, no one's going to tell you unless you, like, just learn by doing, I guess. So that's the reason why I wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Well, I'm really glad to that you were able to share that. And so,
Bob, I
yeah.
gotta, I like to call people out, so I gotta call out one of our other young ones on the card.
Okay.
I ain't gonna let you sit back and be quiet. What's up, man? Why finance or why money? Because we talked about this a few weeks ago.
Wait, what was the question again?
How did this come about? How did we get into the subject matter of financial literacy and the importance of financial education or understanding? And why is it important to you?
It's important to me because that one time when you told me like what I wanted to do after college and stuff, like if I did make it to the NFL, I said I wanted to go to a career of finance and stuff. And then like a financial manager. And then yeah. So I wanted to pursue my career in that if I didn't make it like in sports.
Good stuff.
Okay, no, that's a great point. One of the projects I have, and Simon knows a little bit about it, has to do with Pro Squared, which is financial education specifically for athletes. Because one of the things you're going to learn today, and I'm glad that I think it's Usama putting some notes in the chat, and that is the difference between income and wealth. And that's something that we are going to be talking about today. And one of the points I want to make is that income is not wealth. Many of the athletes focus on negotiating their contract, getting bonuses, how much they're going to make per year. That's all about income, and that is good, but income ideally needs to be translated into wealth. What I wanted to do is show you guys I think it's about a 2-minute, 15-second video. Some of you might have seen it. I understand the gentleman is from North Carolina, who is really quizzing his son, helping his son to understand money and finances. So let me see if I can find it and share the screen and just listen to the key concepts that this young person, probably about 8 years old, is learning. The dude has a Southern accent, so you have to sort of listen carefully, but I really am fascinated by this young person knowing this information. Here we go.
A lot of suckers out here with their money, and you can't be no sucker out here with your money.
Bro, I ain't no sucker. Bet you I don't.
Okay. What's assets?
Assets are things that bring money into your bank account.
What's liabilities?
Liabilities are things that take money out your bank account.
Entrepreneurship is the act of becoming an entrepreneur. What's entrepreneurship?
Entrepreneurship is a process of setting up a business or businesses.
Taking on a greater than normal
financial risk.
What's an entrepreneur?
Entrepreneur is a person that organizes and operates a business or businesses.
Also taking on a greater than normal
financial risk.
What's financial mean?
Money.
And what's risk mean?
Chance.
Come on. What does it mean to own stock?
When you own a share of a company.
Come on. What's real estate investing?
Real estate investing is when you invest in a immovable property.
What's the two types of real estates?
Commercial real estate and residential real estate.
What's commercial real estate?
Commercial real estate is property for businesses and workspace, like an office, store, and land.
And what's residential real estate?
Property to live on, like a house, apartment, or condominium.
Come on. It comes with extra fees when you have real estate, you feel me?
Mm-hmm.
Daddy tells you how many times he pays his state property tax a year.
Once a year.
What's the type of maintenance fee?
Cutting grass.
Come on. What's HOA?
Homeowner association.
And what comes along with that?
HOA fee.
Come on. And when it comes to the brokerage percent, what's the percent is that?
7.
Come on. What's equity?
Equity is the difference between what your business is worth minus what you own.
Also assets minus?
Liabilities and debt.
Good job. What's credit report?
Credit report is like a report card letting you know how well you did by paying your money back you borrowed.
And how does credit affect your life?
The better you keep your credit, the more opportunities you will have to get funding.
And what? Large purchases like?
A car or a house.
Come on. And always repay what you
owe.
Because if you owe somebody, that means you're in
debt.
And you never want to be in
debt. Because
that means you
owe somebody.
And we don't never owe
somebody.
Because that ain't what suckers do, period. Come on.
Yeah, man.
King, it's a lot of suckers out here with their money. And you can't be no sucker out here with your money.
So basically, I want you guys to see that. Let me see if I can stop
What's
it.
assets?
Okay. And see if I can close that out. Yeah. So I just wanted you guys to see that because just like with your own sports, you know, and I'm a sort of a fan. I don't, you know, do sports myself too much, but you go out there on game day and everything just looks great. You know, you see the high performance, but there's tremendous sweat and work behind the scenes that gives rise to that fantastic performance on a Saturday or Sunday. The same is true with that young guy. We can rest assured that his dad spent some hours drilling him, getting him prepared. And that's a little bit what the whole financial learning curve is all about too. It's one thing to say you want to be a millionaire one day and you want to, you know, be a major force in economic development, but there is a little bit of work and homework that goes along with that. So what I do a lot of presentations, so I just have one that, you know, I thought I'd do maybe a third of it or so, and then we have some discussion and then discuss, you know, where we want to go as a sort of a game plan for going forward. Any thoughts or comments thus far, or anything, Usama, you want to say?
First off, I'm glad you shared that. When you originally said that you were sharing a video, I had to check it out, and it was one of those things where I said, man, this is great. This is great. I'm familiar with him. I'm familiar with, you know, how he teaches his son, and it just resonates the importance that we value knowledge and understanding. And it's not just about money, it's understanding your value. So I'm glad you put that out there, and I'm looking forward to what's next. I think we got a group of guys that range in age that we all are going to take something different from this.
Okay. Then I'm just going to share some of my notes that are part of a PowerPoint and just talk a little bit through this. And let's see here. See where we go. So slideshow. So in essence, I refer to this as the Life is Good, a prequel. And I like to indicate that if you're not yet out in the full-time world working, that you're still in the prequel of your life, which means you are laying the foundation for the rest of the story of your life. And that's what you have an opportunity to do. My company, my personal company is called Akamai, and that's just a word that means wise in the Hawaiian language, and that's my contact information. Basically, one of the things we want to help people understand is just some basic terminology. And we've already talked about the difference between income and wealth. And sometimes I spend a little bit of time talking about the difference between being rich versus wealthy, or how much money you think it takes for an individual to have true wealth, but I'm not gonna take the time for that right now. And move on to another major concept that I think is important to understand. And that's this C word. Oftentimes I ask people, what game are we playing when it comes to the United States and the economy? And the game we're playing is capitalism. I like to equate it to a game because as African Americans, we play games very, very well. And so if we can understand that capitalism is simply a game, hopefully we can embrace the understanding of how to play it very, very well. And like any game, it has an objective and it has some rules and how you keep score. We'll talk about how you keep score because that's where that word wealth comes into play. And wealth is, as the young man talked about, assets minus liabilities. We'll talk about that. But some elements of capitalism are, just as you are familiar with already, competition. And there's a book, you know, if you really want to be sort of a bookworm about all of this, you would read a book by Adam Smith. He's considered the father of economics. And he wrote back 2 centuries ago that wealth is really a formula that's comprised of what we said before, human capital, natural resources, and money, which is also capital in financial terms. One of the things he said on one page, I can't remember the page, but it blew me away. And he said, in capitalism, we have to have a laborer class. I suppose that's been no more true than it is today with the pandemic. The so-called essential workers, they are the laborer class, and we have to have them going to work to serve our hospitals, keeping the trash collected in our communities, even during a pandemic. So one of the things I like to say, we need to be sure that it's just not the African-American community, that even though we were brought to this country to be the laborer class, that we need to understand that we don't want to stay 100% predominantly in the labor class. But we have to understand the rules of capitalism is that they do need such a labor class. Capitalism operates by another rule. I went to law school, and one of the things I learned there was this term, caveat emptor. And I'm not going to throw too much Latin on you, but again, it causes you to pause and to think. The rule of capitalism is let the buyer beware. That's what the Latin translation of caveat emptor means. Let the buyer beware. Think about that. What is that saying? That in economics, we have producers and we have consumers. And I, am talking to athletes. And so what I say behind your back sometime is that you do earn high incomes. And oftentimes I have seen that you've become what I call hyper consumers. You might own 8 cars, have enough jewelry to pay for a lot of other things that you could have that could generate wealth. But money is made not on the consumer side, money is made on the producer side. So that's another word to be sure to introduce into the chat. Consumers and producers are the players on the chessboard of capitalism. We are somehow oriented and marketed to be consumers, but we have to rewire our thinking, our understanding, and the way we live in life to understand we've got to get into the producer side of the equation. I can make this PowerPoint available if you wanted to follow up on some of these books, but the other point I'll just make here is we are in fact an ownership society. If we researched the law that came over from Britain, you would see that all the rights of people attached to them owning property, ownership. So think, be producer, be an owner. Those are the things that really generate wealth for you over the long term. Those are 2 words to simply internalize. Now understand the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the book, made some comments about the protesters in the societal unrest. So I'm not as a big a fan of the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad as I used to be, but I haven't removed him out of my presentation. The author is Robert Kiyosaki, that's his name. But in his book, he outlines the various ways we enter adulthood from the perspective of how we generate our money or our income. Most of us, including myself, we entered adulthood as an employee. And by and large, it means we work for somebody else. But we can move along the outline to the next quadrant, which is quadrant number 2, where we become our own boss. We become self-employed. That means we at least have a little more determination of when we go to work, what we do. But on both sides of this quadrant, we do not make any money unless we are working. If I'm self-employed myself, but if I stayed in bed on Friday or Saturday and didn't serve anybody, I am not going to make any money if I'm not doing a service. The quadrants over here are the smart ways people are making money. Being a business owner, this is one that has other employees. So even though you may be asleep, you have employees that are punching the clock, going to work. They are adding value in your business, whether you are there or not, especially once you get the system of that business working well. So this quadrant, we associate that term entrepreneur because you might be involved in a business that's already ongoing, so you didn't start it. But we have a right in the United States to start our own business. So it's a major right that's underutilized in our Black community because it truly is the entrepreneur that the laws are written in favor of, including the tax laws, and the laws benefit the owners of business in many ways, more so than the workers in those businesses. So again, capitalism is really slated toward the business owner class. And there's a whole lot we could go into depth on that, but we just should understand that we need to have more businesses in our midst. Now, I live in quadrant number 4. I love it to death because this is also a business owner, but here's where you just own a few shares of a business. As a young man said, what's a stock? A stock is an ownership in a business. So quadrant 4 is the investor. You are a owner of a business, but you're not owning it 100%, or maybe, you know, it's a small business that's not publicly traded. Here, we're referring to owners of publicly traded companies. So up until recently, I owned Apple Computer, I owned Microsoft. I sold them and wish I had held on because the stocks have continued to go up. But I also own a little bit of Intel and McDonald's and so on. So it's good to just be understanding of these ways in which people are navigating their adulthood in the United States and make some conscious decisions, even though where you may start out as an employee, make decisions that you may not want to stay there and move on to some of those other quadrants. This is basically stating that income is not wealth, and we've stated that before, and wealth is a very formal measurement. This is how we keep score in capitalism. If there's one word I want everyone in the Black community to know and to live by, is net worth, because that is the true formal definition of wealth. It is not income, it is net worth. And net worth is a formula. It's simply everything you own, those are your assets, minus everything that you owe, which are your liabilities. And basically, that's the formula again, assets minus liabilities. And these are words you absolutely need to know going into adulthood. So please lock in on it. Assets are the things that you own. Liabilities are the things that you owe. And that's the formula. So the things that we're talking about for assets, again, not necessarily the assets that lose value over time, like a car or furniture or jewelry. The assets that really count are cash type assets in the bank, savings bonds, your personal property. I wouldn't put as much stock in the personal property. Let's see if I can go back to where it was. And then these are sort of like what we call the hard assets that really do appreciate and build solid wealth for yourselves. Real estate. And keep in mind, number one, and we might see a slide here, African Americans, more African American households rent than own their home. What did we say earlier? That capitalism is an ownership society. So how are the tax laws set up? To benefit the owner of that home with their mortgage interest tax deduction, but the renter does not get a deduction for paying that rent. With vacation homes, thank you. With vacation homes and rental properties, you can own more than just your own home, but that's a start. But beyond that, you can own other properties as well. Now that's an area that some athletes who've been successful in a career of athletics have gone on to be very successful in real estate. Like the young man said on the video, there is commercial real estate, there is residential real estate. Both are valid, both have their pros and their cons, and you just want to dig deep and understand that. Investing in stocks and bonds are very important, and I'll talk more about that than anything because that's very what I call democratic. Everybody has a phone, and most have a smartphone, and you can invest just from your phone with 2 or 3 clicks. So it's very available to just about anyone. Now, liabilities is something that we have to keep in mind. They are necessary. The one thing I don't agree with on the video is that all debt is bad. Sometimes we do go into debt. To buy our home, we'll have a mortgage, or if we don't have all our cash up front, we might buy a car on an installment loan of some sort. But it is important to keep your debts managed because your liabilities actually subtract from your wealth, because the formula is your assets are a plus, your liabilities are a minus. So you always want to be smart about your liabilities. One thing I'll say here, and it's sort of what I was implying based on the video, is there is good debt and there is bad debt. The good debt is when you are going into debt to purchase what we call a appreciating asset, a home that's going to rise in value, or you are going into business and so you're getting a loan to get your business off the ground. We would consider bad debt. You saw those shoes at the Nike store and you got to have them and you put it on your credit card. Or if you are going on a vacation and you don't have the cash flow to get to Bali, but you got to go this year, and so you borrow money to go on a vacation, and then poof, after the 5 days you're there, you've spent $5,000 and you have nothing to show for it. So vacations are great, but I would recommend you don't go into debt for it. So the simple example is to calculate your net worth, you just add up the value of everything that you own. This is a house that might have a mortgage on it, like this one, but once you add up the total value and then subtract all of the liabilities, then it shows you a net worth of $51,000. That's considered sort of modest. This is just why we're concerned about wealth, because it can help pay for our education, health care. There's less crime for people who have wealth and so on. In Madison, Wisconsin, we're actually suffering from young people doing a lot of carjacking. I don't know if they're doing that in the DMV and some of these other places, but you know, I feel like it's pretty silly because people are giving up their human capital potential with these petty crimes when they could be making great wealth if they learn how to invest. This is the slide that changed my career because I began to see in stark numbers the difference between the net worth of Black and Latino households, which is what we mean by non-white, versus white households. We've just said that net worth is the key measure to wealth, and wealth is the avenue for a positive quality of life. So look at here, 2019, the net worth of an average non-white household, Black or Latino, was $21,000 after they subtracted all of their liabilities from all of their assets. Compare that with more than 10 times almost as much, the white household with 170,000, and I think it might be more. So in this very same year, 2019, the average Black household, 21,000, average white household, 170,000. And I just mentioned this because I think we can, I don't know if we can close the gap totally, but I think with a deliberate action and learning, we can close the gap substantially once we learn how to play the game very, very well. The thing that really got me is we are doing this by median net worth. Those of you who remember some of your math, you know that median means half the households have more than this number, and regrettably, half the households have less than this number. And I was alarmed to see that half the Black and Latino households would have less than this. And back in the day, it was even less than 21,000. So again, just understanding where we're at. This is just another chart from some time ago that shows the same sort of low number back in 1995. And that's how long I've been tracking this data. This goes to in Wisconsin, but I think it's same to other cities. Blacks did not have a high home ownership rate, whereas whites, my screen doesn't even show the number. There it is, 72%. So, you know, if home ownership is the #1 way people are generating their wealth,
Bob,
which it is,
Bob,
then we're behind. Does someone have something to say or question?
Yes, we had a question come into the chat. I know I had a question as well with what you had just brought up in terms of that discrepancy. And I know the numbers look like it's just a difference in salary, but we're talking about worth and net worth. And I want everyone on to understand that it is about net worth. So it might be 170K to 21K. It might be that they have a home and everything, but they have a lot of debt that decreases that amount of net worth. And the question that came in was, is he saying that the non-white households spend and owe more money? And that wasn't specifically what you were saying, but I'd rather you take it.
Yeah. So yes, basically the idea is that the wealth or net worth is made up of two things: assets and liabilities, and how they mesh together or how they net out. So the answer is partially yes, but it's also partially no. In other words, it's not about income. And when you're my age, you'll just have heard so many cliches in your life. And now that I'm older, I realize a cliche is a cliche because it's true. And so one of the things I've heard all my life is not how much you make, it's what you do with what you make. And so again, we want to begin to think about separately income versus your wealth or your net worth. So income is how much you make, and it's not much about that, but it's, are you using your income to build your asset base? Because the way you build your wealth is you build your assets, and you control your debt or your liabilities. So yes, it does mean people have maybe more debt than they should. But if you really look at this, we're going to find out that the real culprit in the gap is we don't have enough wealth building assets. And even though, like I say, I don't like the Rich Dad, Poor Dad author that much, I have to say his book was spot on. And I would encourage people to read it if they haven't yet, because he really breaks down building your wealth by building your assets. And each of these words we talk about, you could put what I call adjectives or qualifiers in front of those words, because assets is key, but it's wealth building assets or income generating assets that's the most key. And I'm gonna just do a couple more slides and get into that, and then kind of call it a day. This is just another example of income is different from wealth, and wealth is you take all your assets and subtract your liabilities, and it gives you your net worth. I emphasize this only because it's a real shame if people go into adulthood and they don't know what net worth is. And one reason, and this is to the person who asked the question, you know, one reason African Americans' net worth is low, because they didn't know that they should be building their net worth. A lot of people just manage their life thinking, you know, we have this other cliche, living paycheck to paycheck. They get money in and they're just worried about paying all their bills. And they have not thought about PYF. And you can put that in the chat. PYF, pay yourself first. And that means put away, even if it's just $2 per pay period, but put away something in your savings to build your asset base. Because if you just got money in, money out, the same amount going out as coming in, you're never going to build your asset base. So this is why I introduced what I call the new bling. We've talked about the shiny hubcaps on a car, jewelry. That's the old bling. The new bling, you really cannot see. It's people's knowledge, their education. It's your attitude. I've seen some great attitudes on this Zoom call already. I mentioned the communication skills, how you handle yourself, having a life plan, basically hanging around positive people that aren't going to get you in trouble. We've even seen, you know, regrettable cases of where people have been arrested or even killed, not so much because they were doing wrong, but because of their associations. So you have to be extremely careful about your associations. And then, of course, your portfolio, which are your assets in the bank. That's the real bling. I'm a member of Better Investing, another organization, and it's made up of investors. And we go to annual meetings, and the people just look as average as anything you've ever seen. Those people are millionaires because their bling is not around their neck, it's not in their shoes. Their bling is back home at the bank account, and it is a big bank account. And so we want us to begin to understand that if you're showing a whole lot of so-called wealth, then you probably are not as wealthy as you're pretending to be, because real wealth is somewhere else doing some heavy lifting by generating more income for you as we speak. So this is where I'm going to sort of wind it down for today, but I want to impress upon the brains of everybody listening that bling spells out, and my wife kind of came up with this acronym, what we really want to be about as dedicated and committed as you are to your sports and skills. That the B in bling is for owning businesses. The L is for owning land, and we talked about real estate. The I is for owning investments in stocks and bonds. And as we go forward, we'll talk more about that, because that's the one that's the easiest for anybody to own, and why not own it if it's so easy? And then, of course, net worth is that key word that is the formula for wealth. And it's the way you build your wealth on those first three of the B, the L, and the I. And then graduation is because whatever you gain in your personal knowledge, It cannot be taken from you. It stays with you. So those of you who are still in the prequel of your life and still in school, you have to really understand, as much as you may not like the teacher or you don't like the format, you really want to learn as much as you can, because Adam Smith has declared that those people who only can be laborers, that's how they're going to have to earn their living. But in today's world, with technology and advancements in artificial intelligence and sciences, there's tremendous upside opportunity, but it's going to require that foundation of knowledge in order to pursue those opportunities. So I'll talk a little bit more about some of these other things, but I'm just going to cut it off right there and just see if there's any discussions or questions.
We did have a couple questions come in on the chat, and it says connecting the audio on one, so I'll speak it for him. Brought up land and ownership. One thing that was mentioned in the chat is rental properties. What are some things you should consider when looking for a rental property as an investment?
Sure. So like I say, my deepest lane is stock investing and not as much entrepreneurship and real estate. But the number one rule in real estate, another cliche, you could almost teach a course through cliches, and that is location, location, location. So you really want to look at the overall economy of the community where you're thinking about buying rental properties. And what you're looking for is to see what kinds of companies are there that are creating jobs, and see whether or not that's a company that's growing and has a strong prospect for providing jobs for people in that community, and then look for properties that are going to cash flow. And there are actually formulas, and I can probably bring someone in that could actually, one of our sessions, talk specifically about the formula you want to look for in buying rental properties, because you mainly want to be sure, as Robert Kiyosaki says, that this is an asset that's generating income for you. So you want to look at all the expenses associated with that rental property. The kid on the video talked about homeowners associations. Sometimes you have to pay taxes. You're going to have to pay a mortgage if you haven't bought the property outright. So you got to add up all those monthly expenses and be sure that your rent that you can command from that unit will cover all of those expenses. And then you hopefully are going to make money as the property itself appreciates over time.
Thank you for
that. So let's see. One other thing I was just going to sort of expose folks to is, let's see, it's finance.yahoo.com.
While you look that up, Bob, I'm going to challenge some of my young leaders on the call, and also some of my peers to ask some questions about what you talked about. Because afterward, we'll leave from here, and I'll get individual texts and emails and stuff, or even on phone calls. But I want them to ask you while you're on, and it'll probably segue into our next session, which will be 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
Or next topic on this will be covered 2 weeks from now.
So I do see Juju asked the question, being so young, how can I build my wealth? And that's very straightforward. Number one, be sure you have a credit union or bank savings account, and that you're putting money away in that account. One thing that my family likes to do is say, instead of recognizing birthdays with toys or flowers for our aunts and uncles or whatever, give cash and put that cash into a bank or savings account. And then you can own your own stock brokerage account regardless of your age. It's just that if you are 18, your parents should sign on to that account. But don't wait till you're 18. Warren Buffett started investing when he was about 10 or 11. One of the wealthiest African Americans is John Rogers. He was a friend of Obama's, and he used to get dividend checks when he was 8 and 9 years old. So we want to be sure that you are oriented toward that. We'll talk more about investing, but look at here, right here, BSX. The call I was on earlier today was our stock investment club. And I'll share a little bit of information on that one day. But that's a great way to learn, is just be part of an investment club. But we agreed to buy 10 shares of BSX earlier today. That's probably why it's showing up on my recent ticker, BSX. So keep in mind right now, I am at Yahoo Finance, and it's just finance.yahoo.com. Again, it's a great time to be a capitalist in America, because info that you need is right at your fingertips. We looked at Boston Scientific earlier today, saw that its closing price Friday was $34.68. We saw that its high over the past 12 months has been as high as 46. It's been as low as 24. The fair value right now is looking good for us to buy, because it's rated more undervalued than it would be over here if it was overvalued. And then we went on to look at some other things that relate to this company, earnings, and the green is the revenue. That's the sales going up, up, up each year. That's a good sign. And what are we buying when we buy stocks? We are buying profits or the earnings of that company. And earnings were kind of slow a couple of years ago, but they picked up. And one of the last things we look at is just the recommendations by the experts. Not that they're always right, because they're not, but more of them are recommending a strong buy or a buy, and fewer are saying hold. And I don't think we see any that are saying sell right now. So if you aggregate all of that, right now it's looking like between a buy and a strong buy. So we took our chances, and we're going to buy Boston Scientific today. And like I say, you can just put in any stock. Everybody likes Nike. And NKE, actually, I did it wrong because, well, it came up anyway, because the symbol for Nike is NKE. And you can look and see the same thing. Now, on one hand, Nike's a good company, but is it selling at a good price to buy? $97.99 a share. Remember, the overvalued for Boston Scientific was over here, undervalued. Nike at this price is considered somewhat overvalued at this time. And then I don't know if they'll have as many. See, they even got some people saying sell right here. And it's still recommended a buy, but not quite as high a buy. So one of the things I would like to see the group do, Osama, is each one pick a company and just start following its stock price. You can go to Yahoo Finance to see it. Someone that lives near you can show you how to find it on your phone through a stock app. I actually have a stock app that came with my Apple phone, and I think most of you who have a iOS probably has that stock app on your phone as well. I think it almost looks like that's going through right there. So that's just another site that I wanted to show people because it's very accessible to you. And so I really applaud what you guys are doing, what Osama is doing with you, because the avenue and the channels for building wealth are right under our nose. We just have to know what wealth is, and then we have to know those key assets that help us to grow our wealth and our net worth, which are the B, the L, and the I. The I is the easiest for you to be involved in first. It's not a guarantee, but over time, and in a future session, we'll show that stocks do grow over time. And someone says they're already investing in stocks, which is wonderful to hear about. And some really good questions in the chat. Own your own stock brokerage account. You can look him up, John Rogers. Yeah, that's right. How long do you wait until you sell the stock? One of the sessions, I'll show you our stock portfolio from my family investment club. And there's no right or wrong answer to that. You just want to follow that company and see how it's doing over time. My family investment club bought Microsoft probably 15 years ago. Microsoft was at $25 a share when we bought it. If you double check Microsoft price today, it is over $200 a share. So I sold it personally of what I own, but my family club still owns it. So I still own some through the family club, and it's still going up. Same with Apple. We bought Apple for under $100 a share, and Apple is around $360 or $370 a share now. So, but if a company is going down, like my Milwaukee investment club bought Beyond Meat. A lot of people have heard about the meat substitute, and we bought it at 120. It went up to 170, but we didn't sell it. Then it went down to about 80. Then it went to 140. And then we sold it at, I think, 120, about where we got it, because it was just too, what we call volatile. So you just have to watch the stocks. And that's why before you get in there buying and selling too much yourself, just follow it on a paper trading basis. Let's see, someone says they're already investing in stocks. That is wonderful. And let's see, with just graduating from college, what is the best way for me to start building my credit? Okay, that's a really great question as well. And number one, I'd say avoid credit cards as best you can. And if you do have credit cards, you have to pay your bills on time. I mean, I know people do an entire presentation on credit, and that is an important topic. But the number one, just like I said, with every of these topics, there's a number one cliche or mantra. On credit, pay your bills on time. That's the number one mantra on credit. Beyond that, I would say, wherever you're going to be after you graduate, make a banking relationship by setting up a modest savings account, and then put in money, borrow from that savings account, and then pay it back ahead of time. And that will create a positive credit transaction for you, and your score will then start at a high point. A credit score is a little bit like a GPA. If you start high and stay relatively high, no sweat. But if you start real low, it's hard to bring it back up. So as you go into adulthood and get credit, just be sure you pay your bills on time and establish a banking relationship and have someone there work with you on a first small loan that you know you can pay back ahead of time. And do that, and you'll be on your way. And somebody said Apple, I like that. Y'all know how to check out Apple prices already? $383. Yeah, you guys are definitely on your way. And I would like some feedback as far as what you heard and whether you think it's worthwhile and a way to go as far as learning more.
Yes, we definitely will follow up. If anyone does want to chime in right now, you got it. I know we went a little bit over, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. First off, Bob, I want to say thank you. Mm-hmm. And thank you for going over so many key areas, key points, giving us an introduction, so to speak. And I know that moving forward, we'll be able to dive in a little bit deeper. But if anybody's got any final thoughts, any feedback, please, we immediate feedback is greatly appreciated.
Hey, Bob, I just want to say thanks for this. This was great. I appreciate it. You know, obviously, I'm one of the members of the peer group on the call, and it was really beneficial to me. I do have a question. You know, as far as creating generational wealth, as a guy who is employed by the federal government, so I make a decent amount of income, but I do want to increase my potential for generational wealth. I wanted to know if you had any advice on effectively using my my thrift savings plan and any maybe low risk type of stock options.
Yeah, and so I just put my number there because individual situations, we talk offline and talk you through some of that. Another thing I like to tell people is, especially in today's world, I skipped over one slide that talked about wants versus needs. And we always want to be sure that we're spending our money more on needs. But in this day and time, we all have things that we like and we enjoy. So we all have some wants. And it could be that you really do like jewelry or that you love cars. For me, we enjoy travel, my wife and me. And so before the pandemic, we were cruising like there was no tomorrow. And we were on a cruise in South America, and I ran into a guy who had just retired from the federal government. And he had, it's a wonderful way to build wealth because of the supplemental retirement programs that they have, and just learning how to invest on the side. So those are some of the things that we can talk about, because I'd want to know specifically what your supplemental retirement options are. And then you might can check with your HR person, and then we can talk about it. And you can just give me a call. And that also is my text number as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Rule of thumb is, there's another rule of thumb is, like I said, some people live in paycheck to paycheck, so they're not saving anything. And then in America, if we're doing good, we're saving 10% of our income. For years and years, decades, Japanese have always set their bar at 20% of income instead of 10% to be saving. But then people who really want to be aggressive about building wealth, they're trying to save anywhere from 20 to 50% of their income. And again, some of these are elastic, which means there's no harm in getting a second job or converting a hobby into making money. So you can increase your income in various creative ways. And then that's a way that you can also increase your ability to save. When I first got married, my wife and I always took turns having a second job. Either I would have one or she would have one. Sometimes we both would have one. And then it just allowed us to save more. And that's another thing, and we'll talk about it further, but you can put in the chat the word compounding. That is the most important word for a young person to know, because the earlier you get started saving and investing, the more powerful the compounding will be for young people. So we may even want to talk a little bit more. Well, you want to learn, but then talk about, specifics of how you can start saving and investing at an early age, because it's extremely powerful. And one reason I was able to quit my job early is that, I had saved and invested, and it gave me some cushion, for my older years. And I only started investing when I was 30 years old, because that's when I learned about investing. But imagine people learning in their teens, or even like in my family investment club, we got a, I think, 3-year-old, 6-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And, that is powerful when you start that young. It's almost infuriating to me that we're not teaching this to every young person out there, Black or white, but especially the African Americans, because there's ways to really have great lives with wealth. And you play a sport and make a lot of money, it does accelerate the wealth building ability. But even if you don't play a sport, my friend, he's a white professor down in Florida, is publishing the book just coming out, and it's Teachers Can Be Millionaires Too. And teachers do not make a lot of money, but he's showing techniques about how they can learn to invest and really build their wealth over time. So anyway, this can go on and on because there's so much there, but it's on the one hand, it's a lot to learn. On the other hand, the basics are very, very simple. And everybody should at least learn the basics.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Again, Bob, thank you for being on. Gentlemen, thank you for joining. Great questions added to the chat and also just asking. Moving forward, I know we're over the time frame, but we did get into a book, Outliers, and I'm not going to go in on it now. We'll move that till next week's conversation. If you all haven't gotten the book yet, we're moving into it. We were supposed to discuss up to chapter 4 today. Okay, I see you, Coach. And I've had some one-off conversations with several of you all. D. Jones, appreciate you putting us on to Outliers. If you haven't gotten into it yet, put your hands up. If you haven't gotten into it yet, call yourself out. If you haven't, I know, Ty, new to the call. Reese, you've been on the. Oh, Jabari got the book. I see you, Jabari. Yes, sir. Hey, Dakari, everyone that hasn't, and I'm glad y'all put your hands up if you haven't. In the email, it's a free link. I sent you all a free link of it, and it's not the ideal way to read it. I do digital, I do audio. I like book in hand, but it's a digital copy. You can get into it, and if you have any questions, you've got folks on the line right now that you can reach out to, and we'll have deeper conversation on it. But I'm not going to get into that right now. We're going to get into the 50 out. And thank you again, Bob, for 50 out fellas that aren't driving or riding in the passenger seat. And look forward to next week after this 50.
Okay, and then Usama, let's talk later, okay?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, goodbye.
10. 20. 30. 40. 50. Hey, good work, y'all. Appreciate you all joining. And I'm gonna stay on, have some side conversation. But we'll talk and look forward to seeing y'all next week and talking to y'all throughout the week.